We are
All
like,
right. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're logging in from. Welcome to the second edition of Tech Summit's Contract Lifecycle Management virtual event. My name is Navin Mahavijan. For those of you that haven't met me, I've been in-house counsel, systems admin for CLM, implementer of CLM systems, and I've worked in legal operations, legal services, and seen all the fun and exciting things that come with working in these systems, implementing them, and also dealing with some of the challenges that many of us have experienced with automating our contract lifecycle as well. And so it's my pleasure to be here as your moderator and introduce some of our speakers and a very exciting panel we have lined up for you as well. So for today, I'd just like to introduce as well our sponsors. We have some speakers from our platinum sponsor, DocPath, as well as our silver sponsor, Cobblestone, who I will introduce as they go up as well. We're going to talk about a lot of contemporary challenges and exciting new things happening in the CLM space. So, please listen up, but also please participate. Audience participation is really important to the organizers, speakers, panelists, and myself. So I will be monitoring any questions you submit throughout this entire session, and we will put them to the panelists, answer as many as we can throughout the session as well. So audience participation is a must. No pressure, but if you have questions, this is a great time to ask them, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can in the time that we have. So fully encourage you to participate, but we won't put any audience members on the spot and put you on camera to ask your question. I'll just read them out for you. So don't be shy. Once again, really happy to, be here with a panel and group of luminaries, people that have actually built up solid experience in this space. And, I myself run a firm that implements CLM. And so this is a very near and dear topic to me. A lot of the clients and friends that I've worked with over the years. And, that's why CLM continues to be such a hot topic, even as we talk a lot about Gen AI, which I'm sure we'll discuss here as well. It's something that is incredibly important to in-house teams in particular in finding efficiencies and as we manage how we do the work with contracting, review, and the data that flows from that as well. So again, before we dive right into our first speaker, who I will introduce shortly, please don't forget to ask questions if you have any. There's a lot of rich content here, and even your questions and opinions and insights do matter as well. And I would love to be able to bring them to the panelists or the individual speakers. The format for this event will be that we will reserve some time at the end of each session to deal with Q&A as well, in as much as possible. And so, even if you're submitting questions and it looks like we're not reacting to them, that's because we're saving them for the end. So really, without further ado, let's just kick off this exciting webinar where we dive deep into contract lifecycle management automation. And with that, let me introduce our first speaker. So Juan Carlos Olivares is the CEO of DocPath, one of our platinum sponsors. And Juan will be shedding light on the impact of CLM on information management and customer experience. Now, Juan comes to us with a wealth of experience, and I know he can speak a lot better to this than I possibly could do justice. But, leading provider of document lifecycle management solutions, he's very deeply committed to delivering value to customers, driving growth and innovation for companies as well. And so, again, please submit all questions you have for Juan as we go through his session, and we'll address it at the end. So Juan, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Naveen, and thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen real quick. Just making sure you see the screen. It's all good, right?
Yeah, okay, Juan. Yep, I can see it.
Okay. So thanks everyone for for joining. Thank you for these 20-30 minutes of your time that we're going to be speaking about the impact of contract lifecycle management on information management and customer experience. And of course, thank you to Tech Summit for the opportunity. Let me give you first a brief introduction of what we do at DocPath. Okay. So, DocPath, we have been developing document software for more than 3 years now. We actually work with companies, public, private institutions around the world. Many customers, more than 300 customers, and we're actually at the back end of the process. So probably some of you didn't hear about DocPath, but we are there, and we provide the tools for the business to keep control of their information and to improve their document processes. So as we're going to be speaking about contracts here, I wanted to differentiate first that a contract could be a B2B contract or a B2C contract. And that's very important because I think that this event and this conference is going to be probably going to cover the full life cycle of a contract in terms of the request, the construction of a contract, and the full negotiation, usually a B2B negotiation. But I also wanted to draw your attention on B2C contracts because, before investing in a contract lifecycle management platform, I believe is really important that you are all aware of the pain points from the business and the different goals that want to be achieved. So, in terms of a B2C contract, which I'm going to explain real quick before getting into the real B2B contract and full contract lifecycle management. So what a contract or a document is the merging of a template and data, okay? And this template could be fixed or could be intelligent. And so what we have done for more than 30 years is been working with intelligent templates that take data, and depending on the data, the output is one or another. And so we can call ourselves leaders in this industry in document lifecycle management, because it's been a lot of years, a lot of conversations and with customers and talking about their needs, and of course providing always a solution to them. Regarding the B2C contracts, what I mean is that when a customer has to, he goes to the financial institution and wants to get his new credit card. It's important to have a contract signed, right? So this contract, the beginning of it is a template that in the institution was approved by the different stakeholders, and when in this data that the customer is going to fill in, this data is also important to keep it stored in the system, right? And also the PDF that is signed is also important to keep it stored in the document management system. So what we have been doing for 30 years is actually improving the customer experience in terms of not only contracts, but every document that that is being sent or is received by the customer, and you name it, like statements, invoices. I mean, a document is a document, right? So, so yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention on this because, like I said, it's important to have a complete picture of, you know, when you are going to invest on a platform, make sure that it is keeping track of everything related contracts or everything related documents. Okay. So, okay, so how do we start with the process? We start with the construction of the template, right? The construction of the contract. So when we talk about B2C, this will be, like I said, an intelligent template that is built and has some logic, of course, no code logic behind of it. And like I said, depending on the data, the output will be different. Okay, so in terms of B2C, it's important to involve IT to make sure that, you know, that the template is built correctly, or to involve your vendor or your services company that will help in the implementation and in this process, because these templates are built once, and then there are modifications or there are new templates that are built, but usually not much, because it's about having one template for credit cards, one template for policies, one template for, yeah, sometimes there are more than one template, but this is actually about easier maintenance of your documentation and easier organization of the documentation too. So so yeah, the construction in terms of B2C is explained, and in terms of B2B, it is a fixed template. And how do you build a contract? You usually have clauses stored in your repository that are pre-approved, right? Are pre-approved by the legal teams and the managers and directors involved. So we are sure that the information that goes into the template is actually the information that the business wants to have in that template, right? You know, before this process of construction, there's usually a request. There's usually a department, like a purchasing department, that is negotiating a contract with another company. And then, for example, an NDA, the purchasing department has to request that NDA. And imagine that we don't have an NDA template and we have to build it. So in the platform, in the CLM platform, there should be a request, so that you don't have to do it by email or by a message. No, the request is in the platform. And since that request is there, then if the contract is not if we don't have the template, we gotta build it, right? So it should be easy. It should be easy, like a drag and drop of clauses, because they are already pre-approved. So you drag and drop the clauses, because you don't even have to put logic behind of it, because it's gonna be a B2B contract negotiation. So you're gonna fill the data in that negotiation. So should be pretty easy to build it. And if you go to your vendor and it's not easy, yeah, you have a problem. But so the request the construction with pre-approved clauses, and then we have the negotiation, right? There's a negotiation with another party that probably wants to change some clauses, of course, there's gonna be a communication there. There's gonna be some request of change, and in the platform there should be like, okay, this external user wants to change this clause, and you should be able to see it easily, like red lighted, or the comments that they added, and all these change requests should go through an approval process. The approval process that you decide it is, like, you should have in your platform the way to create a workflow between users or departments, and also you should be able to define roles and access to the users, so that the information that you don't want to share with different departments or different users, you don't share it. You just give access to these departments to the information that you want to share with them. And sometimes, of course, your company has already some processes established, some processes regarding documents. I mean, like, imagine you have a document management system. I'm sure most of you do, or you have an e-sign platform. Then this CLM platform should be able to integrate with the e-sign that you have, or the document management system that you have, and you should be able to look or to search for the information that you want. Like if you want to search for information of documents that were signed like 10 years ago, you should be easily be able to find it. And now with the AI stuff going on, that I'm sure we will talk about it later in the panel of discussion, it's even easier actually for the user. And so integrating the AI, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's about APIs or plugins to this AI, and the hardest thing about it is the training of the AI, because every business is different. Every business has different information and different requests. So yeah, that's the thing that takes more time. But I'm sure we will talk deeper into that later. AI, or the platform itself, like I said, should let you see the changes that the user is requesting, and maybe AI is capable of saying, okay, this has to be rejected because this wording or this phrasing we don't accept it here, and or it could be automatically approved. Like, you imagine it's an NDA. An NDA is pretty easy. It's a pretty easy contract. So most of the companies have the same NDA, or very similar. And that pain of going through the NDA and reviewing it, sometimes by different users, well, maybe the AI could say like, this should be approved. Okay, could be better to just say, click, it is approved, once the AI has given you the comments and everything. But yeah, in terms of these easy contracts, I think the AI is going to, if it does not do it already, you are going to be able to have a complete, like a more efficient process. And and this is, I mean, this is about it. The platform itself. What are the benefits of this platform? The Contract Lifecycle Management. So, like I said, there's the request, there's the construction, there's the negotiation or reviewing, there's the performance, the tracking of the performance, like the KPIs, SLAs that you have in your organization defined, and then the e-sign integration and the automatic storage in your document management system, where then the users are going to be able to search for the information. And so yeah, that's the platform covers this whole process, and the benefits of it should be it should be a more efficient process, like a less time consuming. That's the biggest advantage. And also having all the communication from the different departments in one place, having the whole process in one place, in one platform. And so yeah, I mean, the less time dedicated will mean less cost for the business, and I'm pretty sure that the businesses are looking for that as something, as a main benefit. I'm sorry I didn't share the presentation like I probably should, but I was talking and probably we don't have much more time. But yeah, like I said, some of you probably have some problems like the limited visibility. You probably have like communication going on in the email. Some of it, some of you keep control of the SLAs in an Excel or something like that. I have seen that. And you have Microsoft Word for your templates, and keeping track of the changes like we used to do at college. And so yeah, having everything in one platform with a better user experience and something that is easy to use for everyone, that the users don't need any special training or special knowledge to make use of it. So is the vendor the one that has to do the work of integrating with the different platforms that you already have, like I said, like the documents management system or the e-sign that you have in your business, and they should allow you to have everything in the web, so you don't have, like I said, email going on here for the request and the communication, and then the tracking of the changes in a Microsoft Word, and then the SLAs here or there. Yeah, it should be easy to integrate the platform with your ERP, your system, to have a complete security of your data. Most of the times, these platforms are SaaS platforms. At DocPack, we have both options, but usually it's SaaS. And the storage of your data is where you decide it is. It's in your database. So there's no problem with that. And real quick, like I said at the beginning, before investing in Contract Lifecycle Management, just make sure you have everything under control. The pain points, the current pain points, and what's gonna happen in the future, like laws, like for example the accessibility, where different countries or like Europe, or different continents, Europe or the US, like they have different laws regarding accessibility, where the business has to comply with some ruling in terms of what goes to my customer, right? Is it accessible? Like if he's blind, for example, probably the computer should read the contract. And I think it's important that you are aware of this. And of course, the AI, everyone is talking about AI right now, and it's something that you, of course, need to pay attention to. So yeah, I tried to go over everything. Probably missed some things, but I'm sure at the panel of discussions, my colleagues or myself, we will talk deeper into them. So like I said at the beginning, we appreciate your time, and hopefully it was interesting to you.
Thank you, Juan. We actually do have some questions that we can jump into. So I actually saw a really interesting one about, how document automation software impacts the handling of really sensitive or proprietary information. So, we've got industries like healthcare, for example, where data is extremely restricted or it can only be shared in a regulatory compliant way. I think the other example, the question asker was finance, which is another really great topic. So from your perspective, what's the impact there, and how can members of our audience that deal with this kind of address that as well?
Well, your first question. I mean, first of all, I would say that mainly the access, the roles that the users have to that information is key. And when you have a system or a platform like Contract Lifecycle Management that is integrated with your network, it should comply with all the regulatory that in terms of security, and there should not be any problem. I mean, the key is to keep control of who has access to that information, and if that's under control, that's not a problem at all. What was your second question? Sorry.
Well, the second question was really, what steps they can take to manage that data security and privacy aspect as well through their systems.
Oh, well, I would need to involve the CTO here, maybe, how to do it.
Yeah. But a lot of because this is really important these days. Because everyone has a Gen AI component in many cases.
Oh yeah.
And I think, back in the day when I used to evaluate systems, I evaluate systems all the time, right? But working closely with your head of information security when you evaluate the systems, because, where is the data being stored, right? I mean, everyone just assumes that it's being stored locally, but I think that's something that, and we probably will address this panel as well for the audience, but where the information is stored, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of AI, the thing is that people want to go really quick with implementing the AI, and not just the data compliance. Of course, you should work with, you should make sure that the compliance in your country, or if the data is in your country, that it complies with the regulatory that you have in your country. But I think it depends on many. It depends on the AI that you use. It depends on like if you're using, I don't know, IBM, Microsoft, or they do it differently. And I think that before deciding integrating AI or keeping my data or having my data go through their AI, I think it's important that you are aware of what's going to happen, and involve your security team in this process, of course. So yeah, I think the AI is gonna be probably the key for the future, and very, very, very important in these processes, document processes. But we should not go real quick on, we want AI, we want to implement it. And no, I think we need to make sure that we are following the right path, and
No, no, excellent. Really in summary, for the audience, obviously the latest tech does add an additional layer of compliance that you really do need to be looking into. And the only thing I would add really to Juan's answer, which was very elaborate, was with AI, you really do have to look at, is there a human in the loop component as well, which is perfectly fine. And sometimes you do need that depending on your use case. But is that human
Yes.
in the loop local? Are they overseas? And what security
Mm.
policies are in place as well? Because that's really important. And it's an easy one to overlook when you're selecting systems. It may be important to you depending on the industry you're in. Juan, we have time for one more question. And this is a really interesting one from the audience as well. How does CLM support the integration of more emerging technologies like blockchain and smart contracts, integrating those into, contract management processes? Are there any benefits to these right now, or is it just too far into the future to really think about?
Well, I think well, if you are using one of those tools currently, I would say that the information that you have is the most valuable that you have.
Mhm.
And it's important once you're evaluating a platform like CLM platform,
Mhm.
uh, this this information should all be in one place, or you should have access to it from one place, and probably a CLM platform could be replacing those processes that you currently have. Uh,
Mhm.
I think it's more about evaluating everything that you have currently. I think that the procurement thing has a big. I'm sorry about the procurement guys that are in the session, but you have work to do, because you should do a big analysis here. Talk to everyone in your business
Mhm.
and the pain points that they have, how they are doing things currently. Analyze everything, how it is, and how it is. With not just the data, like the whole process, how it is, and
Mhm.
before making a decision, just go over everything. Talk to your stakeholders about the goals that the business has, and yeah, I think that's the key.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Juan. It was an excellent presentation. I just close it out by saying to the audience, I think really great question on blockchain and smart contracts. For most of us, typically we just won't use it just yet, especially if we're still doing everything manually. But if you're in finance, I'd love to hear if you're messing around with smart contracts and blockchain, because that's where I see this happening a fair bit as well. And admittedly, it's not my area of expertise. I just buy the occasional Bitcoin and pretend I'm part of blockchain. So thank you again, Juan. Of course, anyone in the audience, if you have more questions for Juan, he'll be returning to the panel with us later as well. So keep sending them in, and we will try to address them towards the tail end of our panel as well. Thank you, Juan. All
Thank you.
right.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent, excellent. And now we're going to move on to our next presenter as well. So we have Swapnil Shah, who's going to be presenting on transformation of the contractual world with AI integration. One of our very hot topics these days, as we all know. And Swapnil himself has almost 2 decades of experience, in corporate law, the healthcare industry, and so he does bring very robust experience to a session like this. He is the director of contract management services at NextDime. And, he's spearheaded multiple contracting teams, tackling all the evolving changes that we do see, in healthcare in particular. And just to go back to a question that our audience asked, this is a highly regulated space. So I would go on to say it's a lot more challenging than your typical corporate contract management practice as well. So with that, Swapnil, please take over. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naveen. Appreciate the intro. Hope everyone is doing well today. we'll dive right into it. I'd like to start off typically with a joke, lighten the mood a little bit, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. So why was the computer cold at the party? Because it left its windows open. Yeah, little dad joke there. Hopefully get everyone smiling and laughing. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so warm welcome to the world of AI. Just want to quick question. Do we know if let me give me 1 second. Let me just open up my slide here. Sorry, it's having a little bit of a glitch, and we'll go and get started. Okie doke. All right, I'm hoping everyone can see my screen here. Apologies.
I can see it, Swapnil.
All right, great.
Yep.
Awesome. So welcome to the warm world of AI. Typically, everyone is talking about this, day in and day out. It's become such a hot topic nowadays in terms of, what can we do with AI? How can we do, can we live without it? Is it going to take my job? But you talk about, AI. So I just want to kind of bring it down to a level where we can, observe it at its basic level, right? You're using AI pretty much every day with your phone, Face ID, your email, your entertainment, social apps, Google navigation. You're using it for rideshare like Uber, Lyft. They have smart driving cars now. That's become a thing. And then, anything that you're doing with search algorithms in Google, anything now you start having, these little AI little boxes saying, how can I help you? Or can I finish your sentence, etc. Right? And so artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the realm of contracts by automating, optimizing various stages of the contracting process, from drafting, reviewing to negotiation, compliance. AI-driven tools enhance efficiency, accuracy, and negotiation, and the speed of it. These technologies utilize natural language processing, which we'll get into just in a little bit, and machine language learning algorithms to analyze vast amounts of legal data, identify potential risks, and ensure adherence to regulatory standards. As a result, businesses can reduce costs, mitigate errors, and streamline their legal operations, ultimately transforming traditional contract management into a more dynamic and intelligent practice. So really quick here, I really want to just kind of set the standard here for what we're looking at in terms of numbers, right? Let's say 84% of enterprises believe that AI will go up. It is basically the competitive advantage that you need, pretty much, right? And then pretty much, the efficiency boost, the data-driven insights, and enhanced customer engagement. That's been a big thing, customer engagement, right? AI, the ability to reach customers, to be able to talk to people when you're sleeping, even to do cross global collaboration. The outputs of AI is endless. Now we continue to follow the money, right? In terms of what we're looking at, right? AI software global market revenue, right? They're saying $126 billion by 2025. Now, just to give you kind of a markup of what $126 billion looks like, is that I'm just going to give you some stats here so we just understand how much money is really being put into play here. So if you took $126 billion, right, you can send $700 a household to each household in the US to offset inflation. You can hire 890,000 registered nurses to address shortages in hospitals. And then you could cover medical care for about 7 million veterans. If you had $126 billion, you could buy 4,200,000 cars at $30,000 each, or 630,000 homes at $200,000 each. If you were to travel, you could travel around the world about 5,060,000 times, or take a trip around the moon 263,000 times. So the amount that this revenue is being generated by AI is going to be bonkers and through the roof. And so I just wanted to kind of set the tone for what we're actually dealing with when it comes to the world of AI. These are just quick snippets of numbers. I mean, we talk about ChatGPT, the amount of users that are being added there every day. This data is probably old by the time I had written it, like a few weeks ago. More and more people are probably getting into this. You talk about the watch wearable market, right? Fitbit, Apple iWatch to track your fitness, etc., etc. So I mean, it is growing, right? And then we look at the CAGR, right, which is the compound annual growth rate. That measures your investment's average annual growth over a given period. This shows you the average return on your investments over a year. This is a great tool. I love it for investors too, because it precisely measures the investment growth or decline over a time. And we can see that with AI, it's not stopping anytime soon. Okay, so enough about the money and kind of where the economy is going and how we're getting into this. And I just want to dive into the contracts. This is a quote that really has stuck with me for a long time. Ever since I've kind of have been into my legal career, the modern economies are held together by innumerable contracts. We can't really function or have our day-to-day businesses without contracts. Now, whether that's a very rudimentary basic contract for a service or complex healthcare contracts, IT contracts, MSAs, whatever have you, right? It runs the gamut, but at the end of the day, this is what kind of holds all our businesses together at the end of the day. So, back in the day, right? I don't even want to say back in the day. I mean, this is probably even like 5 to 10 years ago. People were using contracts in a very conventional way, right? You pretty much have, it's whether in a folder or, it's people are taking notebooks and they're storing it in files and things like that. But, it was so hard, right? So so in order to kind of get past that, I have a story to kind of illustrate why we need CLM contract management. So bear with me here and give you a little story and then we'll share some lessons learned from the story. So once upon a time in the quirky world of Widget Co., a company that thrived on creative, innovative widgets, there was a peculiar incident that left everyone scratching their heads. Widget Co. was booming and they were sealing deals left and right. However, they had overlooked a tiny glitch in their operations. They had no CLM system. Not good. One sunny day, Widget Co.'s overzealous sales team, led by the enthusiastic but somewhat scatterbrained Sam, landed a colossal deal with a new client, Megacorp. The deal was so massive that it would catapult Widget Co. into the Widget Hall of Fame. The only problem? The contract was written on the back of a napkin in Sam's famously ineligible writing. No one bothered to clarify terms, and everyone just assumed everything would work out. Little did they know, this was the beginning of a hilarious and costly escapade. As I get into the story, it is a little bit funny and we'll chuckle at it, but I'm sure at the end of the day, Widget Co. is not going to be laughing. So as Widget Co. started manufacturing the widgets for Megacorp, they encountered numerous unforeseen challenges. The napkin contract had left too much room for interpretation, and soon disagreements erupted over delivery schedules, quality standards, and payment terms. Widget Co. found themselves in a legal quagmire. Megacorp, smelling blood in the water, hired an army of lawyers who were more than happy to exploit the ambiguity in the contract. Widget Co.'s lack of CLM system meant they had no organized way to track changes, amendments, or even original terms. Yikes. The situation turned so chaotic that Widget Co.'s CEO, Bob, was found rummaging through his office drawers, desperately searching for that napkin, as a lot of CEOs in the past have done, right? Where they've had no CLM system, you have a whole closet or bins of folders that you're pretty much now rummaging through to figure out what's what. In the end, the Widget Co. lost not only Megacorp deal, but also faced hefty legal fines and reputational damage. The incident became the stuff of legend with the company, with employees jokingly referring to the lost contract as the napkin fiasco. The lesson learned: never underestimate the power of a well-organized CLM system, and always make sure your contracts are written on something a bit more substantial than a napkin, unless you want your company's fate to be as flimsy as a gust of wind. So pretty much here, this illustrates, all the issues that companies have ran into in the past. With a proper CLM system, now obviously coupled with AI, you can really run a smart business. You don't really need to have hundreds of people behind you. If you have about 5 to good 6, 7 AI programs, you essentially could run a massive business just being, a CEO and having a couple other people helping you out. All right, so let's jump into NLP and contracts. I'm sure you guys have heard this, natural language processors. What they allow is machines to break down and interpret human language. This is at the core of tools that we use every day, from translation software, chatbots, spam filters, search engines, grammar correction software, voice assistants, and social media monitoring tools. NLP techniques such as text summarization algorithms can automatically extract key info from contracts, condensing lengthy text into concise summaries. This enables contract managers or any legal professionals to quickly grasp the essential terms and conditions and obligations, saving valuable time and effort. NLP helps negotiators adhere to playbook and focus on most critical areas. The applications of NLP for contract analysis go far beyond simply ensuring an accurate agreement. A contract negotiation platform that leverages an NLP can cut negotiation time significantly while creating better deals for the company. So this has become a really good thing because now you can get into a contract, take out the info, whatever you need, and you're on to the next. And typically you have contract managers, legal professionals that used to spend maybe, let's say, 10 hours on a contract. You can essentially cut that time into half or even a fourth. So this has been really good. AI to the rescue, right? I have examples here of, different just AI-based software programs that you can use, to assist in legal professionals in creating contracts. The software replaces certain terms, adds pre-approved words automatically without human effort. They also give recommendations for appropriate words to be used in contracts. In addition, they can be used to generate AI-based contract templates for individual clients, corporate houses, and other businesses. By using software like the ones I have mentioned below, which are just a few, lawyers, legal professionals can draft contracts more cohesively. They can also amend the outdated information and update it with the latest data, which helps minimize future conflicts arising from such contracts. The software can scan already available contracts, recognize potential mistakes and clauses, conduct revisions, and draft contract templates for the latest use and demand. It works with unmatched precision and can extract important, valuable data. Just like I mentioned before, you can just put in a contract within the system and it pretty much gives you whatever you need. It's not to say that you don't need anyone knowledgeable on the back end to know what they're doing. But again, it's a great assist, to anyone in the legal world. I know we had touched base on this on the last conversation, but smart contracts, right? These are now becoming more of a valuable thing. More and more people are getting into this. They're basically digital transaction protocols that verify control, and they self-execute an agreement embedded in computerized codes on a blockchain. Now, if parties meet predefined rules, unlike traditional physical ones, these contracts occur among anonymous parties and are enforced automatically without the involvement of a third party. Now, smart contracts have three main components: signatories, the subject of the contract, and the contract terms. The parties involved satisfy the terms of the agreement, which are the set of the rules and penalties for successful transaction. Besides eliminating the need for an intermediary, executing agreements through digital contracts is considered cost-effective and secure. More so, the decentralization blockchain network ensures that transactions remain transparent, traceable, and irreversible. Blockchain technology is an advanced database mechanism that allows transparent information sharing within a business network. A blockchain database stores data in blocks that are linked together in a chain. Blockchain owes its name to the way it stores transactional data in blocks linked together to form a chain. As the number of transactions grows, so does the blockchain. Examples of smart contract applications include financial purposes like trading, investing, lending, and borrowing. They can be used for applications in gaming, healthcare, real estate, and they can be used to configure entire corporate structures. The reason why smart contracts are becoming such a thing is because now you can have kind of a preset defined way of how you want to do your contract. There's really no hacking it. You can't get in and change the agreements. And so for a lot of financial institutions, this is kind of, I think, going to become the future. It's already there, I think, but I think we're going to see more and more of this as time does go on. Benefits of contract management, right? The biggest things that it does, like I mentioned before, as you guys can see on the slide, but the biggest thing is analyzing documents. The AI algorithms parse and understand documents using the NLP, identifying the key terms, The AI recognizes the terms, clauses, names, and dates, automates the tasks. AI performs tasks like flagging, legal issues, redlining, and sending reminders. And then AI becomes better based on the new data and feedback. The cool thing about AI is, and I'm seeing it with a lot of CLM platforms, is that as it becomes more and more self-learning, the more data you feed it, the more enhanced it becomes. It can improve the compliance of a contract by minimizing errors and risk by ensuring alignment with parties' goals and expectations. It can accelerate the contract review cycles by much as 40%, which is crazy, which is amazing too. At the same time, by optimizing terms and conditions, standardizing clauses, and flagging non-compliant clauses intelligently. It can enable companies to innovate and adapt to changing markets by surfacing new insights from the contract data. Components such as pricing information, clause attributes, expiration dates can be extracted out of lengthy contracts within seconds and presented to the user. Certain CLM technology offerings have also been trained on contract attributes specifically, so they can identify different clause types. This can be very useful when reviewing a high volume of contracts. Just like I mentioned before, think of portfolios like contract types like NDAs or MSAs for a business division, for example. Generative AI, legal and non-legal professionals using this AI can handle contracts so much more easier and understand the commercial agreements and act on them. Risk mitigation, right? This is something we want to, obviously avoid. These are the biggest things we want to talk about when it comes to risk mitigation. Obviously, compliance risk is one. We want to make sure that, when a company violates external or internal rules, regulations, or standards, its reputation is going to be on the line. Their finances are at risk. Companies may face losing customers or pay a fine due to breaking compliance regulations. So I want to make sure that we're taking care of that. The legal risk, a type of compliance risk that happens when a company breaks the government rules for companies. Companies facing legal risk could also get caught up in expensive lawsuits. Strategic risk, the result of a company's faulty business strategy or lack thereof. Reputational risk is another component, a risk that can negatively impact company standing or public opinion. Reputational risk can result in profit losses, decreased confidence among companies' shareholders. And then operational risk. A business day-to-day activities can potentially drain its profits, both on its internal system and external factors can cause operational risks. So this gives you kind of a quick snippet on, things you want to avoid. Dancing with legal danger is not fun, although dancing is, but just not with legal danger. Challenges and concerns. This is a huge hot topic within the AI arena, right? They have so many governance committees now that are being formed within companies. Governance committees need to make sure that whatever AI is being used, it's being carefully, it's being considered across the board to make sure that there's no gaps or loopholes. Best practices are put in. So a couple of things that companies need to look at when looking at this is you want to implement machine learning best practices. You want to create a diverse culture of support. You want to promote transparency to create explainable AI model. So any decisions made by an AI are visible and easily fixable. And you want to ensure that the work is measurable as possible. A couple of things you want to look for is obviously there's a threat intelligence analysis your company should do. Just to make sure that the AI is not going off the walls and not doing things that you don't want it to do. Fraud detection, there's risk detection, there's data classification and monitoring that you want to make sure that you want to handle. And then even with some of these challenges, you want to look at two major things within the AI management process. The first is going to be costs, right? It's expensive to process and analyze large amounts of these data, right? Even when using cloud native services, specialized AI services that are required for risk management, applications can also be very costly to use. And the second is going to be privacy, right? The biggest thing about data and AI is your privacy. If personal data is used inappropriately by AI tools, a company is facing compliance, legal, reputational risk across the board. Whatever data it's being uploaded for cloud services, might require certain protection protocols, encryption, transport security, tokenization, and just ensuring that, for example, that you have all your protocols in place, like ChatGPT, right? Currently, right now, you can upload a lot of your company documents, things like that, but there is still, I know ChatGPT says that we're not responsible unless you, get subscription to our model, which is X amount of dollars a month. But even if you subscribe to ChatGPT's more private subscription for companies, they still say in writing it towards the end that we can still privately use whatever documents you are uploading for training our AI and making it smarter. So at the end of the day, is anything really foolproof? I don't know. The jury's still out on that. So I would never even say with a ChatGPT subscription or anything like that your data is going to be foolproof, because in some server somewhere back in some office somewhere, the AI is being trained, it's getting smarter, and it's with your company's data. So as long as you can encrypt that data, in-house, and you don't have to put it anywhere else, I think that's the safest method to kind of, keep your data secure. You have success stories. I'm not going to go into too much detail just because of time, but, Alphabet's, Google parent company, Waymo, right? This company has self-driving technology. It began as Google. Today, Waymo, it brings self-driving technology to the world, not only to move people around, but to reduce the number of crashes. Its autonomous vehicles are currently shutting the riders around California, self-driving taxis. If you see in Vegas, if any of you have been there, you can go actually sit in a car. It takes you on a 2-mile kind of trip around the strip. A little nerve-wracking, but it's there. Right now, the company can't charge a fare, and a human driver still sits behind the wheel for a pilot program for Waymo. But, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be not long before you're traveling long distances across the board. Amazon, right? It ships things to you before you even think about buying it. They collect so much data about a person's buying habits, and they have such confidence how the data they collect helps them recommend items to its customers. Netflix has done the same thing with their movie selections, right? You go on Netflix, you create like, dislike, and then, the next time you log on, it's giving you a bunch of movies according to your preferences. And then that obviously it builds as you watch more movies, you like, dislike things, it's going to start catering to what your tastes are, which is an example using it of AI. I'm going to just jump onto the next slide just for time's sake, but this is the big thing that I kind of want to hit on. We talk about AI, we talk about the beautiful things that it's doing, but the biggest key is really about the people using AI and how much they want to innovate within a company. And so entrepreneurship is a huge thing that companies should look at when installing AI or having teams that work with AI or Gen AI or LLMs, because it's really the people that kind of make the machine go, right? And these are the 4 questions to ask, like, why am I implementing it? Who will be benefited? The what, and then really the how, right? It's the who is your cultural contributors, your what is going to be your revolutionary ideas. The how is, are you a startup culture, right? Do you build, measure, learn? Are you learning from that iterative process? So until you have something you can put into the world, you can keep continuing that cycle of people asking those questions. And so at the end of the day, it's not about just getting ready, just get started, right? It's not about waiting to kind of implement, AI or how do we get started. You just need to jump into it, get the proper feedback, and then understand the nitty-gritty. It's the best way to really drive your own company's reality of, going forward. And then the question I get asked a lot is AI going to take my job? No, it's not going to take your job, but you will lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI more properly or more confidently than you. So I think it's about being informed. It's about just, getting your feet wet, understanding what AI entails and how you need to get there. So I'm hoping that, this kind of gives a good flavor of what you are looking for in terms of what AI and kind of where it's going to go. I know everyone's involved in AI. Everyone has their heads down and they're all at different lengths about AI, but I think in the end of the day, it's going to become a very useful tool for us to kind of hit that next level within our personal lives and our business objectives as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swapnil. That was excellent. And the part that really spoke to me was that story you shared about the missing contract, as it were. I've personally experienced that, where I'm old enough where we used to actually store paper contracts in those gigantic filing cabinets with wheels. And digging those out is just a nightmare, especially when there's some urgency around it. So CLMs really changed the game with that. We've got some excellent questions from the audience, and one that was really interesting, it goes back to the ethical considerations, which I know you touched on a little bit during your presentation. But really, can you tell us a bit more about not just ethical considerations, but potential biases as well with using AI that organizations need to be a bit more mindful of when they're using it in contract management?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bias is pretty much, like how your systems are trained using some of the data, right? From human sources, deep learning, which obviously can lead to the propagation, biases through the technology. So you can have AI which emits certain demographics if the data sets that are used to train the algorithm contain a bias already against a particular group. Obviously there's legal implications to that because it leads to discriminatory practices. That's just one example. If you are kind of conducting a practice where, not even discriminating, but, you have, an unhealthy bias, towards demographic X, to say like, this demographic just eats very unhealthily because of the fact that they can't, afford the right amount of food or based on where they live or things like that, right? So socioeconomically too, if you're not feeding the right data into it, then it takes that data, propagates it, and just turns it into, a whole worm of issues. And then also on that too, deep fakes is another huge ethical concern that you're facing, right? Because people are now using facial recognition, voice modulation to really hack into companies, being somebody else. I don't know if you guys heard about, there was a huge hack on MGM, which is a casino in Vegas, by a deepfake, by a company that really got into, posing as a C-suite executive, and then that's how they kind of hacked into it. So these are some of the pitfalls that you want to make sure. Obviously, AI, if you know how to use it, you can do a lot, but then there's also a lot of bad things can come from it if you're not using it responsibly.
Thank you. Another question, because we always talk a lot about how AI can identify clauses, for example, in a contract, and that's a common topic. But zooming into that a bit more, how can AI effectively help us in identifying ambiguities and discrepancies, and how would that then go on to impact dispute resolution with contracts as well?
Yeah, so I think one of the cool things that AI does now is as you feed it more and more contracts, especially with your more complex contracts, and let's say you went to bat for this contract and then you resolved how the contract works, you negotiated it properly, and it was really complex. Once you store those datas and pivot points like A and B, you store that and it stays there, right? So next time when you have another contract, what these AI systems can do is they can bring up pretty much side by side in terms of how you solve that ambiguous contract or what your pivot points were for your company. And it tells you that, hey, this is what you did as a selection course last time. Is this something that you want to resolve in the same manner again or not? Now, there's two benefits to that, right? Having, let's say you're a person, a contract manager or a professional that goes through thousands of contracts, right? And 2 months ago, you really sorted out an ambiguous contract, you don't remember that. But the fact that the AI can remember it, bring it to you into your face and give you these options, it really allows you to work much more meticulously and quicker and faster. But you only get to that point. The only caveat to that point is you only get to that point if you're infusing enough contracts within the AI for it to learn. But the ability for it to do that really allows people to work at a quicker pace.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen it a bunch of times with in-house teams, and I would almost want to flip it sometimes back onto people where the AI, depending on what you use to train it, right? If you're really using your own contracts, all your documented information, what you might find is that you are biased in a way you don't realize, like, hey, I follow these positions, and that's what I think
Right.
as an in-house attorney. But in reality, the AI uncovers that you do not follow these positions. This is actually your real standard position across most of your customer contracts. Something like, we don't accept opt-out clauses, in our business to customer contracts. However, in fact, you do in reality accept those clauses way more than you think you realize. And so it can give you a lot of information as well, right? To, adjust your policies, or maybe loosen the reins a little bit because the evidence is right there. We don't need to go on this fact-finding expedition through our contracts to evidence that. So no, really, really great stuff. I know we're out of time for more questions, but thank you so much, Swapnil. We're going to move on to our panelists who we'll be introducing ever so shortly. Again, thank you to the audience for sending in questions. We'll try to address as many as we can at the end of the panel. If someone submits something just super biting and interesting, we might just break halfway and address your questions. So to those of you out there hanging on to something really poignant about AI or CLM, now's the time to ask it as well. And so really for our panel, before we get into it, because we have a really distinguished and exciting, and I would say a fun group of folks here on our panel to talk about, evolving from manual to automated contract lifecycle management, which is interesting in this day and age because we're still talking a lot about CLM, and it's super important. But transitioning continues to be a challenge for some teams. It's easy for some of us, I know, but and so with that, let me introduce our panelists, or rather, let's have them introduce themselves to us. So, starting with Mr. Kirk Sampson from NextDime, if you would tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you. It'd be my pleasure. I believe strongly in outsourcing work, so this is a great opportunity for me to help you with this process. So I have been working as an attorney now.
Kirk, we might be having some technical connectivity issues with you.
Years, have gotten into the really just over the last 2.5 years. We have. Is it audio, or are you having a delay in?
It was audio. I think you're back now. Please continue.
All right, I'll give it another shot. Just raise your hand if we have another delay. I was saying that I've spent the last few years here at NextDime working on contract management consulting for larger companies. We do end-to-end contracting processes for a number of very large companies, including a Fortune 50 pharmaceutical company. And so what I bring to this discussion is a sort of an overview of the process and the challenges that companies have with onboarding new technology and trying to decide what direction to move with all the new technology that has come onto the market in the last 5 to 10 years. So look forward to chatting with everyone on this topic.
Thank you, Kirk. And over to you, Adri.
Hi, I'm Adri Christensen. I'm the legal operations lead at Cora. I've been with Cora for about 2.5 years now. And prior to Cora, I was in a couple other legal ops roles. I've been in the legal ops space for about 7 years. And, a big part of that is CLM, automation, choosing the right technology for your team. So I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mr. Michael Martin, you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Naveen. It's great to be here. Michael Martin, I work for a company called Simplus. We're a systems integrator focusing on CRM and CLM and CPQ. I've been in the space, I've been in the delivery space for 15 years. I've been in the CLM space for about 5. And yeah, looking forward to helping people understand more about CLM and speaking with everybody.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And last but not least, the familiar face. Juan, would you mind just reintroducing yourself quickly?
Yes, well, I'm Juan Oliveris. I'm CEO at DocCAD. Yeah, we pretty much cover the document lifecycle management space, and we will go over the contract lifecycle management in this discussion. So it will be interesting.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Juan, and thank you everyone for joining. Today we are going to keep this as light and conversational as we can in a virtual event like this. And also, to the audience, don't forget to ask questions. We'll kind of circle back to some of your questions as well from previous speakers if we get the chance as well. But to start off, I have a question for the panel that we usually reserve till the end of sessions like this. But what current and upcoming innovations in the CLM technology space are you seeing, are you expecting, over the next 12 months that will really impact CLM adoption, how we use it, but also the industry at large? I know that's a loaded question. Don't all say Gen AI at once. But what are you seeing in the market that has you excited, I guess? Anyone want to go first before I put you on the spot?
I mean, I can tell you Gen AI. That's going to be huge. I mean, like I'm sure like, Audrey having like a paralegal in a box, or like a legal assistant in a box, is pretty incredible. And that'll just get better and better. I would also say CLM kind of integrating better with other parts of your enterprise tech stack. So like your documents are what your contracts, your agreements are what really define your relationship with your counterparties, be it vendors, partners, clients. And that drives all sorts of stuff, pricing and terms. And there's a lot of data in there that you can act against and make business decisions against. So how do you unlock that? Grab it from a document, grab it from CLM, and push it to all the other systems that you have available in your tech stack. So all of the CLM vendors out there trying to figure that out and what it looks like, and the SIs like us trying to also figure out what that looks like. I think that's going to be one of the kind of exciting things over the next year or two or three.
Yeah, no, I like that, Michael. We're definitely seeing a lot more systems coming to market and existing ones as well that are just easier to integrate compared to back in the day when CLM was more of a pinpoint solution, right? As a standalone platform that just the attorneys use to review contracts. So that's really exciting. And of course, Gen AI as well. Kirk, would you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just would like to throw out something besides Gen AI, sort of, which is the autonomous contracting processes that we're seeing now. The idea that humans are coming out of me, it's a little bit frightening when you consider currently relying on to do work in contract.
Oh, looks like we might have lost Kirk again. Does anyone else want to chime in while we wait for him to reconnect?
Sure. I'll just kind of, piggyback. I really agree with what Michael said. I think it's great to see that, a lot of these CLM solutions are not so siloed anymore. They're starting to really expand and just make working collaboratively a lot easier. So, your procurement team, your finance team, everyone has their own systems, and it's really great when those systems talk to each other. It just makes things a lot easier. So seeing kind of CLM really focus on expanding the scope of where they have impact has been really exciting, and continue to see how I'm excited to continue to see how things evolve.
Yeah. And with that connectivity comes challenges as well, which I know we'll all talk about as we talk about integrations and things like that as well. I think definitely for me, like, we can't avoid the elephant in the room with Gen AI. And I like that term, kind of having a paralegal in a box, or a virtual paralegal to kind of help you do simpler tasks as an attorney or as a business user, even to kind of keep things moving and letting the attorneys focus on more complex things. So with that, would any of the panelists like to share, I think, just some of the benefits that your own organizations or perhaps clients that you've worked with have really seen in adopting more automated contract lifecycle management?
Yeah, so at Cora, we're a very lean legal team. There's 6 people. And so we don't have time to spend, the attorney's time on contracts all day. So just automating our CLM has really helped free up attorney time, to your point, to focus on higher risk, more strategic matters. And the legal team is able to align our OKRs better with the business. And then also we're empowering business users. So it's kind of helping reshape that relationship between legal and the business. So legal is being seen as a business partner, and not being seen as, the department that's holding up a deal, or the department of no, all those kind of fun stereotypes. So the automation has really helped kind of take legal out of contracting unless we really need to be involved.
No, that's really great, Adri. And could you tell us a bit more about, when you talk about automating contracts for the audience, are you just kind of bypassing legal for certain contracts, or is it just that route more effective routing? Tell us a bit about how you guys are using CLM to kind of speed up that process. And I have a very interesting story about customer contracts that I'll share if we have time.
Yeah, sure. So it's a bit of both. I think it's being able to kind of skip legal review for those really low risk contracts that are coming in, and then also just automation of approval routing, generating our templates automatically, pulling in data automatically. It just kind of is removing the need for a lot of that manual intervention. So we have rules configured, workflows configured. And then, we're also using some of the, AI redlining capabilities. So it's really just trusting the automation and building it out in a way that legal only has to be looped in on those really high risk contract negotiations.
No, I love that. And really with kind of that AI review as well. Because I know a lot of attorneys get nervous about that, or what if the AI reviews it wrong or makes a mistake or doesn't redline it quite the way I would. There's always that challenge and fear, and that hurts adoption, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. But, really, AI is incredibly powerful with simpler contracts, right? The NDAs and the statements of work, or sometimes just proofing a purchase order, which all sometimes goes to legal, unfortunately, as well. And so that speed boost is really powerful. I wanted to go back to Kirk just to give you a chance, if you can hear us and speak as well, because I know you got abruptly cut off by, let's blame the internet. Are you there, Kirk? I guess not. Well, before I just start sharing that exciting story about customer contracts and things like that, in speeding up contract process, does anyone else want to talk about, their own personal experiences with their clients or customers, or maybe their own internal organizations that you've had with adopting CLM and the automation that it brings?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the clients that we work with, I mean, it's a variation on the theme that Audrey was talking about of doing more with less. So like specifically, you can imagine if you're in legal or legal operations and you're getting these huge documents, and maybe they're not on your paper, especially if they're not on your paper, and it's like, I've never seen this before. What the heck is this? What's in it that I might need to worry about? What's in it that maybe I don't have to spend so much time on? It's not generative AI, but there could be like risk analysis of, hey, based on our playbook, this is our kind of where we want to be with limitation of liability or, termination or whatever. And you can see, oh, well, this is way off, from where we want to be. So maybe spend some extra time on that area. But according to your playbook, actually this other term is pretty good. So don't spend too much time on that. So you can kind of score this thing. And then on the Gen AI side, it's like, well, this is pretty far off. You could spend time redlining it, or you could say, create me something that's a little bit closer to where I want to be. And yeah, it might, Gen AI nowadays hallucinates a little bit or can be a little bit off, but that's why you review it. Maybe give it a human touch if needed, and then go off there. But at least you're not starting from scratch and having to write this thing on your own.
Exactly. It just doesn't have to be 100% perfect, I think, is a lot of what users and legal ops heads are, starting to grapple with, where it can be perfect in the right situation, and that can save you a ton of time. and create a lot of efficiency. And sometimes it's just about where you apply this tech as well. So that story I was alluding to before we move on to the next question really was customer contracts. I worked with a team where their customer contracts were always not getting signed in time being, by the end of a quarter, which is really important for a business for many different reasons we don't need to get into. But ultimately, on analysis, what we found was the real holdup was NDAs. So they always needed to sign non-disclosure agreements with their potential customers. And in this case, they really did need to have an NDA in place because of the nature of what they were doing. But that was holding up everything else because it was taking weeks to just sign an NDA before they could proceed. And that had a knock-on effect to everything else. And sometimes if you have a system in place, you can start to see these things happening, right, guys? But when you don't, you have no idea. You just have this feeling of it's taking too long, and I can see the end result as well. So that's really the story. CLM took care of it mostly through just bypassing legal on a lot of non-disclosure agreements entirely, so that they didn't need to find the time to look at it just to say, hey, this looks okay, and that removed that bottleneck. So with that being said, I think we've talked a bit about how awesome CLM is. I mean, everyone's heard the story, right? There's efficiency, there's automation. We save legal a lot of time. We save the business a lot of time, deal velocity, all those great things. And all of us in this room know that. But, the question really then becomes, oh, Kirk, you're back. Hello.
I hope so. Yes, I hope to be back.
You sound a lot better. I know we lost you mid-sentence, but we have since moved on. But I guess you were going to tell us about some significant innovations that you are seeing in the industry, and how you think it impacts both the users and the CLM industry itself.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to go back and revisit that, and hopefully it's not redundant with anything that was added in my absence. But no, the exciting thing for me as both a challenge and an interesting development is the continued growth of autonomous negotiations. I think that's a really interesting area where we're seeing human negotiators being replaced by technology. And it's both exciting because there's an improvement there, arguably also in stakeholder feelings about the contracting process. But a little bit of a concern, right? What do you do with these folks that were handling those type of agreements in the past? How do you move them up the value chain and get them to jump into more complex negotiations right out of school? Things of that nature will be very challenging. But I think it's fascinating to see how much of traditional contract work will be eaten up by automated or autonomous negotiations in the next couple of years.
No, I agree. In fact, I've just this week, I've looked at 2 different CLM solutions where if you use it the right way, you can almost set it up to bypass legal based on AI analysis of a contract. So a statement of work, in many cases, is just business terms. The attorneys don't need to be looking at that. But once in a while, legal language will get added to a statement of work. And then that's where the AI can just go, this has nothing, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Oops, someone's adding some random, liability language in this particular SOW, escalated to legal for review. And so I definitely agree. We'll be seeing a lot of that as well in this space. And so but thank you, Kirk. And I'm glad you're back with us as well. Fingers crossed. It'll stay this way. But what I was kind of segueing into for all of us in the panel here is, we've talked about all the cool aspects of CLM, and that's been discussed to death. Yet we still have, I think, organizations experiencing challenges with just implementing or rolling out or using CLM. So any one of you, please jump in. But what do you think are the biggest challenges organizations are facing today when transitioning from just your manual in email, Excel spreadsheet, contract management process to a contract lifecycle management system?
Yeah, I can take a first shot. I can take a first shot at this one. So, as a systems integrator, we implement CLM all day, every day. I tell my clients we eat sleep, breathe, drink, dream CLM. And one of the things that people need to understand is this concept of flexibility versus standardization. And the nice thing about, and there's a spectrum there. The nice thing about emails and manual processes is it's infinitely flexible, right? Like anyone can do whatever they want, whenever they want, which has some upsides. But the problem is that anyone can do anything they want, whenever they want. So there's a lot of just kind of chaos. On the other side is too much standardization. And if like every single contract needs to go through this process like that, now you're kind of pigeonholed. People say, I don't like this. The way that we used to do it was better. And so when I'm in there, or my team is in there thinking about how do we implement CLM, it's okay, well, where do we get that sweet spot between flexibility and standardization? And with AI, you can kind of, coming back to the topic of AI, like you could have it almost kind of think for you, like, okay, in this case, you know, I'm going to make this a little more free. In this case, I'm going to have to bring it to someone who needs to review it. But that's one thing that, you know, you should keep in mind as you're going through your CLM implementation journey.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Michael. And Juan, I know you and Michael kind of started answering at the same time. Did you have anything to add on the challenges with, you know, adopting CLM tech?
Yeah, well, I think Michael and my colleagues will be more ready to share their experience when adopting this technology. But yeah, I mean, the adoption is something that I believe that different stakeholders need to be patient with the process, because you cannot just go like, oh, we got a new CLM platform. The next day we have transformed digitally. And no, it's more like you need to be trained. You need to be, you need to adapt. And the tool, like the platform, needs to adapt to you, to the business. You need to be able to customize it, customize the workflows. Of course, use the AI when you want to or you need to, like you have been saying, and yeah, to be able to integrate the different systems that you already have in place, like the document management system or the e-sign platform, like as I was saying before in my speech. So yeah, I think that basically the main thing is the adoption and to be patient with the process.
Yeah, no, adoption is a really kind of squishy concept because it's so different and it's in many ways unique. I mean, it's the same overarching problem. Like you were saying, Michael, people are used to their manual way of doing things. And I've heard that story myself many times where, you know, you think you've implemented this wonderful automated 2-3 step solution, and then someone tells you to your face, I liked my old 15-step solution because I was good at it and was efficient, and relearning this is really challenging. Adri, if I could go to you really just, you know, with Quora, what were the challenges that you guys faced in, you know, rolling out and pushing adoption for the system you use today?
Sure. So I think, you know, similar to what's been mentioned, we did have a, you know, CLM tool in place when I joined, but it was very manual. There was no automation. And then, you know, when I came in and started to kind of push automation and getting a new system and all that, I think it's really, you know, going back to the change management. People don't like to change the way they're doing things always. You know, they've been doing things a certain way and they know the process in and out. And so when you start to kind of come in and change the process, if you're not, you know, doing a good job at kind of pulling your key stakeholders in and making them part of the automation, you know, really making it a collaborative effort, it can feel that you're just kind of forcing this on them. And so I think for me, it was really key that I had my key stakeholders support, and that it was really, I was designing something with them and not just coming in and saying, this is the new process and you're doing it because legal says so. And so that was, one of the things that I think could have been a really big issue. And luckily my stakeholders were great, and I was able to kind of get them on board and to really design something that when we rolled it out, it wasn't such a big shock to the business users. They were aware it was coming. They had kind of helped build it out, and just make sure it's collaborative and not being a forced change.
No, I love that because it's really kind of a big change from what I would have called traditional CLM system, where we're so focused on legal and how legal will use the system. And CLM has really become more of an enterprise solution where the bulk of your users aren't actually legal. They're the business, they're your salespeople. And yes, everyone interacts with it. So that's fantastic. And to shift gears a little bit to system selection, really, because that's something that we get asked all the time. And I'm going to break for an interesting question that I got as well. That's a bit more provocative. We're talking about kind of botched implementations, but in system selection itself, what are the most important things to look for? Integrations, how customizable does a system really need to be for an in-house team, are kind of what we should be talking about now. So in this case, Kirk, if you don't mind, I'd love to jump to you, get your thoughts on kind of choosing the right CLM system to get started.
Certainly. And Naveen, I may go back and answer the last question a little bit too, because I think they're related. Sure. Which is to say that, probably no system is perfect, right? They all are variations on a theme. The main issue is, I think, how you use them, and are you picking something that you can effectively manage to grow with over an extended period of time? This is where we have a problem. You're making a commitment of many years, usually when you buy a CLM platform. And some of the companies that we have worked with in the past have run into a situation where, they have to get the change management right, as Andrew pointed out. They have to do a lot of training to make sure that people can effectively use what the system offers, because just because the sales folks are able to point it out to you doesn't mean that you know how to actually use it, unless you've committed also to the training of all of your stakeholders in its proper usage. But the other thing that's really interesting is how they grow with you. And if you look at some of these larger companies who've dropped, multi-millions to adopt a CLM system, they find 2-3 years down the road that they need to pay for specifically tailored tweaks to the process, right? So that it matches up with what the company wants to do. And this is where things start to get a little bit pricey, because a lot of these CLM providers, once they have you in their let's say grasp, me if that's not too ominous of a term, they have a tendency to perhaps charge you more than would be necessary to get those tweaks done. And it's very hard for the company to jump off of the train that they chose to take on other technology. So when you talk about what's important, I'm looking beyond merely the technology and the bells and whistles that come in a package, but also the partnership. You have to work with a company and a provider that you can grow with. And some of them are much better at that than others. Even if their initial offering isn't perfect, if they're willing to grow with you and adapt with you, I think that's really the key piece to this.
No, that's really great, because I mean, like any other SaaS solution or software, there are going to be updates, new features, changes to the UI, and that's kind of part and parcel. I mean, even as attorneys, we love Microsoft Word so much, but even that application has changed dramatically over the years, and we get used to it. But what I would add is always, when I think about system selection, you always want to be purchasing what's on the cart, not possibilities or the roadmap for that particular developer, because they may be well-intentioned, right? But that doesn't always play out. And it's something as simple as, I wanted to implement something this way, but it breaks 15 other features. And so we need to retool it. So what you thought you were buying is not what you're getting. And I see a lot of kind of tension around that when rolling out a new CLM system, in the sense that that dissatisfaction you get with rolling out something different from what you thought you were going to deliver to your organization as well. And Adri, if I could go back to you, because there was a really interesting question that we got that I think we can address. But how often did you meet with stakeholders throughout, your CLM implementation process? If you could let us know a little bit about that.
Sure. So my stakeholders were very involved. I, pulled them into demos. I had them as part of a small group of users trialing the different products when we were narrowing down to our, top few. And I'm still meeting with them, today, even post implementation. I think it's really important that you keep them involved. So even after you go live, it's not, this is the process and that's it. You're just aiming for continuous improvement. And for me, it's really making myself the clear person to come to. So if there's feedback, questions, comments, I want people to know that it's welcomed and it's wanted, so that we can continue to improve. And there's never going to be a 100% done workflow or process in CLM. So my stakeholders are still very involved, and I think it's important to keep them involved. Otherwise, it's just going to become a stagnant, bad process again, and you're going to have to restart, in a couple of years from where you were before.
No, that's fantastic, and really, it's kind of that buy-in, right? That's always very difficult to get, in the sense that you want to keep people involved. And what I've seen a lot of teams do is kind of build champions, right? For as you're beginning to build out your workflows and things like that, you have early adopters from different departments, sometimes your stakeholders, sometimes their own management team, to kind of learn the system. And then, that defrays a bit of the responsibility from just one person being the expert, but also having that one single point of contact is immeasurably helpful. Because if I'm there, I'm looking at you going, I have a question, I'm going to ask Adri. I know there's a ton of documentation and videos and things like that I can watch, but humans always want to go, hey, I just want to ask someone a quick question so that I can keep going. And that really helps with adoption. So it's lovely to hear. And Michael, I know you kind of wrote an answer to that similar question as well. If you wanna give us the gist of it before we move on.
I mean, the gist of it is constantly.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can never meet with stakeholders too frequently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I know
the gist of it.
Oh, sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to cut you off. What did you say?
No, that was it.
Oh, yeah. And then key steps as well, right? For organizations to transition. I know you wrote an answer in response to Eric's question, which I think is a good one. I think for me, definitely what is critical is the training, because every UI, every system, how easy it is to use can be very subjective. Unless I guess it's an iPhone, is what I keep hearing. But and so that training and that rollout has always been incredibly key. So thank you for the questions. Keep them coming, guys.
Can I say something here?
Yes, Juan, of course. Please jump in.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, interrupt
No,
away.
it was the question that you made to Kirk about it was the vendors that I had with my own experience, or our sales team, we were trying to get a new CRM platform, and it was actually a well-known CRM. So it is a big company that when you try to get their platform or access to their platform, to their service, you reach out to them, but they don't even follow up to you. Like it's you the one that has to go to them and keep following up, because they're like, they just go like to the main enterprises and they just focus on that. Like, and I think in the CLM is pretty much the same, that when you work with a vendor that is one of the three big players, big fishes, in the CLM space, you're probably not gonna get a nice training, a vendor that is close to you, but it is what it is. And when you work with a CLM platform or a vendor, the first thing I would do is, before signing a contract, I would try to get like as part of the subscription, I would try to get like a block time or something where I can keep asking questions, keep trying to get more training and to have the vendor by my side, not just like, hey, here's the platform, good luck. No, I think it's important to make sure that you have everything under control before putting your sign into that contract. And when you work with vendors that are not the big players, probably they will be more like proactive to work with you closely.
No, that's a really great point, Juan. In fact, I almost always insist, some vendors call it hypercare, right? But once you roll out a system, that's honestly never really the end of, hey, we went live with CLM brand X, and then there's a ton of questions, weird glitches from what you've built that you didn't anticipate, even with a lot of testing, and having, office hours of some kind where you can meet with that vendor and get direct support versus having to send an email and then wait for them to respond is especially critical in that early stage when you roll it out.
So not just paying a subscription for the platform, but also for the service. You gotta have like maintenance and support, right? Like having the vendor there close to you, helping you go through the whole training and process, and
and having an advocate, I think, was the other one as well, right? Where and sometimes that advocate can just be the in-house legal operations person. Sometimes it's a third party that you bring in, a consultant, or sometimes it's the professional services team at the vendor as well. So who that individual person is can be different, but having someone in your corner to help you with the challenges as they come along with rolling out. I think help quickly, right, guys? Because that's the key piece. Once you start seeing delays, that kills your adoption and people start grumbling, and then you have a whole different issue as well. So we have a great question on cost. So I'm going to make an executive decision here. We were going to break to kind of just ask questions, but I feel like this is a lot more fun for us to address questions in real time as well. But before we go to an audience question, something that's come up with the other speakers as well, and I think it really matters here, is what measures are essential for us in dealing with security and compliance of all this data that we're putting into a CLM system? Because today everything's in the cloud, for better or for worse. On-premise CLM systems exist in a very, very small market segment these days. Michael, if I could go to you first, any thoughts on just data, especially for highly regulated companies that have maybe patient information in contracts and things like that as well?
Yeah, I would talk to it's a good question for whichever vendors you're evaluating and what their particular policies are, what regulations or certifications they have, and it really becomes your own kind of risk management, because some vendors might take a different approach than others. So I would just say that make sure to, if that's something that's incredibly important to you, make sure that you're asking the various vendors that you're considering.
Makes sense. And with Gen AI as well, and like the data that you're training all these models with, does kind of whether the data is segregated within your own kind of personal instance or corporate instance versus being shared is probably something that I think everybody is starting to learn to always ask and make sure of as well. Any to the rest of the panel, any warning signs, red flags that you have seen with vendors as far as data privacy and how you've met those challenges?
Well, I think that the data the data can be stored like on-prem and be under your security team control, your network control. You can have your database in your system, and then just have like a SaaS platform where connects to the database. So I think it's just about the network. I think that your security team, if you work with an SaaS platform, it's a web-based platform. So I think if your security team has your network under control, there shouldn't be any problem with data. And regarding data with AI, this is more like when you start, so you're involving another vendor or another player here. You're involving the AI vendor, right? Or the company that provides you the AI. You should, or your security team should work with this vendor on the compliance of the data that goes through them, because I mean it's obvious that it should comply with the regulation of the country where you're based, or where the data is going to go. But I mean, when you're talking about contract lifecycle management, it will always be, unless you are involving a user outside of the country. But yeah, that's so. Like I said in my speech, you need to analyze what is happening with these contracts. Who is getting involved here, and just make the right analysis before making a decision. So security is a key here too.
All right. No, very good, very good. And did anyone else want to chime in before we move on?
Just a brief comment from my end,
Yes.
Naveen, is, it's interesting as people look at these systems, they should also look for the advantages of not having to add bolt-ons after the fact. So every time you bolt on a new piece to a platform, you're opening yourself up for security leakage. And I would agree with Juan. You can, in fact, we'll have to rely on your IT security team for the overarching company to make sure that they're covering the CLM platform with the same degree of rigor that they would for your accounting system. But there are some complexities to CLM platforms that they may not be familiar with, right? This is oftentimes a piece of technology that hasn't been in the company or has not been as complex maybe as some of the accounting systems are. So trying to keep something, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, that is compact, that is unified, and doesn't require that you tag on, your Salesforce and 16 other things in order to be effective, is the best way to go forward, right? Because it allows you to make sure that you have a clear and transparent oversight of the CLM system.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Kirk. And as we get to the end of this panel, before we jump to the final question, because it's both something that we were going to discuss, but also a question from the audience member around ROI, really. And Adri, I'll go to you first on that. But when we think about data privacy and access as well, one thing that you definitely need to focus on is your API integrations. And what I mean by that is, we always look at the individual systems. Hey, I'm studying my procurement system, where the data is domiciled and things like that. And I do the same thing with my CLM system. But once you start building custom integrations to connect the two systems, what you might find is the vendor or the contractor that you're bringing in as well might be housing data in an intermediary server or location that is not compliant. And that's something that's very easy to overlook when you're scrambling to connect two systems to do great things. And so keep that in mind as well. Don't just evaluate the individual platforms, evaluate the intermediary and make sure that it's compliant with, the regulations that you and your organization are subjected to. And then before we move on to, our next and final speaker, last question in the 2 minutes or so that we have was really just around, well, you've implemented your CLM system, right? How do we really provide evidence to share with our stakeholders and executives that, we are really getting reduced time and cost, and really how that translates to ROI, right? Did we invest our dollars wisely in this CLM system. So Adri, if I could go to you, and then we'll move to another panelist if we have time.
Sure. So, I think it's really key that what your leadership is going to determine as data that's important to them. What they define as success, it's going to be different across every organization. So for us specifically, I think, automation in CLM is an investment now that is going to save us money later, because, now we have all this data. I can show cycle times, legal involvement time, and essentially show that we are saving the need to hire additional headcount to meet the growing demand of volume. So that's one really key measurement that I'm constantly sharing with leadership. But again, I think it's dependent org to org. You really need to figure out what data you need to be tracking that is going to resonate with your leadership.
No, that's really good. Last call to any other panelist that wants to chime in before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, specifically, for instance, if you're looking at like a sales-oriented kind of CLM process, stuff you might measure is like time to get signature, right? And pulling revenue forward a little bit, because you're just able to get those contracts executed faster. How much time is sales spending dealing with contracting versus actually selling? So that might be a little bit hard to measure, but certainly, with a CLM, it can improve. And then to, Adri's point, how much time is legal spending supporting this team, and can they keep a smaller headcount as the company around them grows? On like the vendor side, so the other side of the house, now it's like, well, how often are we, one horror story that I hear a lot is we had this contract with this vendor and it auto renewed because we just didn't realize it was auto renewing, and now we're stuck with them and their pricing for the next however long. Again, maybe kind of tough to measure, but how often does that happen? How infrequently can we make that happen? How often can we reevaluate our relationships with our vendors and get better pricing? So this, to Adri's point, figure out what's important to your organization, and then work with an SI like us or whomever to figure out how to measure it and track it.
Very nice. Thank you, Michael. And I'll add the last word on this because I'm the moderator and I can do that. But really evaluating the success of your CLM system. Never forget, you need some starting data before you implement the system as well. Try to gauge and track a little bit as to how you're spending your time. I know it's difficult because everyone's super busy, but if you have a baseline or a benchmark, an internal benchmark, you can then compare it to the success of your CLM system 1 year, 2 year, 3 years later, and see how far you've actually come. Don't wait till you're starting to evaluate the success of your system to then try to go, how long did we spend on NDAs 18 months ago? Try to collect that before the implementation even really starts, because that is going to make a world of difference when you're standing in front of the executives trying to explain how things have improved over the last 12, 18, 24 months. And with that, I'd love to thank my panel. You guys have been fantastic. Even with connectivity issues, that's always the occasional problem, but appreciate all of you joining us. And I'm going to move on now to introduce our next and final speaker for this session. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. All right, and guys, for our final session of the day, again, a reminder to the audience, you've been great. Keep asking us questions. We are going to answer them, and some of us will stay on to try to type in answers as well, like what Michael did for some of you. But, I'd love to introduce our final speaker, Michael Gormley, who is, comes from Cobblestone, one of our silver sponsors. And Michael's going to be talking about contract management redefined, exploring the latest advancements for legal teams. And Michael himself has over 6 years of experience with Cobblestone. He's been instrumental in helping his clients navigate, the admittedly very complex reality of contract lifecycle management as a senior account manager there. And, expertly guided clients through CLM adoption, onboarding, and all the benefits that come with that as well. So without making you listen to me any longer, let me pass the baton to you, Michael. Please proceed.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate the introduction and the support. So yeah, I mean, a lot of great discussions on that last panel, and some of that we'll even be touching on in a very small percentage in just a second. So basically what I would like to do for this final talking spot is basically kind of provide one very brief background about Cobblestone, but I'm actually going to jump into a live demo environment and basically walk through some of the out-of-the-box features and functionality that Cobblestone offers to streamline a lot of that initial process when it comes specifically around contract review and analysis and extraction. So basically, once I pull up my screen here, there's going to be a quick PowerPoint slide deck. But again, just to give everyone some very brief background about Cobblestone, and this ties to a lot of those discussions we were just happening about ensuring you're selecting the right provider that offers the correct services or data hosting offering and packages. So Cobblestone has been around since 1995. We were one of the very first providers of that commercial off-the-shelf contract management software solution. So basically, we strive to offer a very flexible and configurable solution. So what does that mean to organizations and potential users? That means it offers the ability to track and manage in unlimited things such as user-defined fields or contract types, department statuses. It does also have machine learning backed AI capabilities, which we're going to be touching on in just a few minutes here, as well as many other tools to track the entire life cycle of a contract from initial drafting, red lines, negotiation, back and forth, signatures, and much more. Now, with that, again, our tool is tailored and offered to support the entire contract lifecycle. So whether that's as early as an initial request for a contract or purchase request, then as it segues into the need for initial contract drafting if we're using a standard template, or automation of back and forth and version control and red lines between internal resources and vendors, and internal final sign-off approvals, really all the way leading up to those final signatures, whether that's wet signature, electronic signature, digital signature, etc. But then the product doesn't stop right there at signature. We then offer a lot of features and offerings to track all of those post-execution requirements, whether that's project deliverables, milestones, obligation KPIs. Those could be deliverables your organization is responsible for, or that could be tracking the vendor's compliance of meeting expectations and requirements for certain project milestones being hit in a certain amount of time. And then all the way through contract review, compliance, closeout, and then any renewals. There was somebody who mentioned on that panel earlier as far as potential lost revenue of auto renewing a contract you didn't mean to, or missing a cancellation date. All of those key dates, alerts, reminders are very important for organizations, especially as you grow and your contracts scale out. Now, the final slide that I want to touch on, and then I'll kind of jump into my system and walk through a very specific use case, is the transition of the CLM industry is going into artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics. Cobblestone does offer a backed Wisdom AI functionality. We're only going to be walking through a very small subset of that in just a few minutes here, but this tool does support analysis across, again, the entire life of a contract, whether if it's at the beginning stages of contract review, intake, negotiation. It does also offer auto redlining functionality, which we'll be touching on, clause comparison, risk mitigation, analysis, sentiment scorings, and things like that. But it also offers a lot of features for post-execution management, real-time recommendations based off of trends and analysis that it's recognizing based off of the contract you're agreeing to, and much more. Now, with that, I do want to jump in here. So the system itself, which everyone should now be seeing, is going to be a web-based solution. Now, as far as expected user navigation within the tool, upon initial access, it's going to take them to their home screen, essentially, or what we like to call a dashboard within the system. There are many configurable options to each user in each organization. There are out-of-the-box graphical dashboards provided. An example of one we're looking at here, which is our year analysis. As we can see, this provides some quick executive level summary of information within your tool. So a count of contract counts by year, some gauges showing us financial information such as a total contract amount, total spend amounts, key financials as well. But all of this data can be updated in real time. By default, I'm seeing these values based off of every department and every type of contract I'm managing within my system. But we can very easily begin unchecking some of these values to drill down in the appropriate areas of the tool we want this data to reflect. So let's say, for example, I don't want to see BAAs within this count right now. I can uncheck that, and all of our data will fluctuate accordingly. Now, there are about 12 out-of-the-box graphical dashboards. We're not going to be touching on all of them here. Another one that I personally like to show, which is my personal favorite, is this system summary using date range option. The reason I like this one the most and see a lot of clients heavily utilizing this dashboard view is because this enables the user to define the date threshold in which they want to see this data reflected. So we can pick a single day, single week, single month, single quarter, or year, or we can also come in and manually define that date range. Hey, 2020 was an interesting year for all of us. I want to see what that looked like for our contract data. We can define that date range, and again, within a few seconds, all of our data will fluctuate accordingly, which with these charts, we have the ability to export out of the tool. We can drill down into this data and to see more information and much more. Now, again, the one specific use case that I want to touch on is going to be the use case where, let's say we have a user that is looking to initiate a new contract for review within your CLM tool, and we're working off of the third party's contract. They sent us their agreement that we need to have go through internal reviews and approvals. What a user has the ability to do is we can take that document that was provided from the vendor, whether it be a Word doc or a PDF, and we can easily drag and drop right within our system. It does provide the user with a pop-up prompt. Hey, we've recognized that you've dropped a file within your system. What are you looking to do with this file? Now, I only uploaded a single file. We do have the ability to upload multiple files at one time if we would like, but we're going to say this is a new contract that needs to be reviewed. And we're just going to tell the system what type of contract are we reviewing. Now, the reason that we prompt the system to tell the type first is because that's going to define a lot of the alerts that come forward. Hey, if it's an NDA, maybe that gets routed to a certain department or a certain user group, where if it's an MSA or an SOW, maybe that goes directly to the general counsel or the legal resources that are relevant in negotiating those type of contracts. But once we hit continue, what that drag and drop is going to do is it's now going to take that document and process it through that Wisdom artificial intelligence engine. What that Wisdom tool will do is it's going to examine that document, and it's going to first pre-populate any of our key fields or attributes that we're looking to manage based off of the data found within the document. So we can see it went through and found the information such as the title of the contract, the vendor or counterparty we're doing business with, the department, and other values. But not only will it just extract key data such as that, date values, monetary values, it can also be set up to extract key clauses or terms. Now, keep in mind, all of the clauses I'm showing here are just examples. So an organization may say, hey, we don't care about service deliverables. We wanted to pull out things like indemnification, warranty, or governing law. That's all configured and defined based off of your organization's needs and business process. But we can see here, it did extract not only the entire clause itself, it pinpointed key values within the clause. So here's the service deliverables language the vendor is proposing, but here's the actual initial payment due date we're going to be tied to, or the total project cost associated with this deal, as well as many other things. Here's the service level language they're proposing, and then the actual uptime percentage that they're going to be tied to. Now, this is phase one. Hey, it's great that we now have the system streamline that initial review and it's extracting and flagging the clauses for us. But what if a user says, well, hey, it's great to know what service deliverables language they're proposing, but now I want to kind of compare it to our standard language or our clause playbook to see how differentiating that language may be. If I come back up to the top here to our clauses tab, this then breaks the document down on a term by term basis. We have a few tools and offering. We can add certain clauses to our training data to continue enhancing the machine learning. We can add language to our own clause library to use moving forward. We can also create an automated workflow task to loop in a subject matter expert, maybe based off of some of the language they're including. We want to include an SME for their review. But if the Wisdom tool does find language within the third-party document that is similar to language within your clause library and clause playbook, we do have the ability to have a quick side-by-side comparison. Here is the language that the vendor's proposing. Here is what we typically propose or agree to, just to see that quick glance of how differentiating is our language. Now, again, a user may say, hey, that's awesome. I can see this side by side. But now I'm recognizing what they're proposing does not align with our standard business language and what we typically want to work with. How do I start redlining or negotiating based off of our standard clause? We can now come in here and we have the ability to initiate our clause replacement. Very similar view. It's going to give us that side-by-side comparison of language found within the document that differentiates language that we standardly agree to. But we now have the ability for the user to say, okay, I want to strike theirs and input ours. The project scope, we can leave. I'm fine with what they're proposing. And then we can hit update. Basically, once I hit update, that's now going to automatically create a new version of the document with red lines striking the vendor's language and inserting our standard language for a new version for them to review. Now, again, that's one step forward. Hey, that's perfect. That now allows the users to delineate, okay, what do we want to strike? What do we want to add? But we can then even take that one step further. What we have the ability to do, once we're done filling out all this information, if I save and continue, it's now going to create a new contract record where we have all of the key metadata values stored within our system. We can begin searching and reporting off of that. We now have the file that we initially uploaded within our attachments table. But what I can now do is automate that initial contract review and red lines even more. If we come down to our attachments table, I can now take that vendor document and I can route it through what we call our auto red line. Basically, what this auto red line will do is it will take that document and push it through a clause playbook comparison. So if there is any language within the vendor document that differentiates from our standard language that we have defined within a clause library or a clause playbook, we do have the ability to then automate it. So we can see now within a few seconds, a new version has been uploaded, prompting with those Wisdom red lines. And if I open up that document here, we can see that auto redline engine went in, struck some of the vendor's language that didn't align with our standard processes, and it automatically included our standard language or our standard fallback clauses as a new version. So I can see here in just a second, once Word loads up, we're going to see some of those red lines struck within that document. So again, we can see it went through, struck the vendor's proposed term language, inserted our standard term clause as a new red line. It even has a little comment here recognizing that this was located and replaced by Wisdom. And then same thing, if I scroll down a little bit lower below, we do have this ability to also see that it struck some additional language and proposed new versions here. So again, that auto redline is just a tool to streamline that initial contract review. Let's take time away from tedious tasks for important legal team members, put it on the hands of the system. And then when we start actually getting into the actual back and forth, the negotiations, the red lines with the vendor, that's when we can then have those required SMEs looped in to start handling those negotiations. So when we start getting into the actual red lines and back and forth, users can have the ability to come in here and make changes right within Microsoft Word. So we can delete language, insert new language, insert comments. We do offer a complimentary Microsoft Word plugin that will give users one-click access to their organization's clause library. So again, as we need to reference standard language or reference alternate or fallback clauses, we can very easily see those here. And then once a user's done making changes, we can very easily just hit this upload button and upload a new version right back within the system. Now, when it comes to red lines, that's option one, working within the native Word format that every user who handles contracts is going to be comfortable with and familiar with. However, if we jump back into the Cobblestone environment, we do also offer a tool for users to make changes to this document right within the system itself. We do have an inline web editor that is very similar to the native Microsoft Word format. So there's not going to be a drastic learning curve for users who want to utilize the inline editor. But same thing, we can come in here and we can delete language, insert new language, insert comments. And then we do still have one-click access to our Cobblestone clause library. So as we're working through those negotiations, we can very seamlessly insert additional language as required throughout the negotiation. Now, with this tool, once the user's done making those changes, we can come back to our Home tab, simply hit Save, and that now automatically uploads that new version right back within the system. Now, again, these features and offerings and this AI capability is really just a small subset of the entire contract lifecycle and the entire use of how Cobblestone is utilized throughout that contract review. But again, that is an initial tool that a lot of organizations have implemented to save time and opportunity costs and have more of that automation around initial review, analysis, risk mitigation, and then start looping in the SMEs for review from there. So as we tie into some other features, we do have tasks and workflows to automate those internal reviews with internal resources and subject matter experts. And then we do also have the ability to initiate an online negotiation where we can take a document, send it out to a secure online portal that would invite both internal users as well as external contacts to access that portal and streamline that negotiation. Once a new version is uploaded by our other party, the other party will get an automated email notification making them aware there is a new version for them to review and really streamline that negotiation. So again, with that, that was a very small subset, but I did want to end there and open it back up for any questions that any of the attendees had about that functionality, specifically CLM around the offering in general.
All right. Thank you, Michael. We have unfortunately way too many questions to answer in the time that we have. But can you tell us a bit about how we could manage, I think, contracts across multiple jurisdictions where we're more of a multinational corporation with legal teams across the globe as well, and how that can be handled effectively through a system like this?
Sure, absolutely, and that is definitely the case. So we at Cobblestone, we again have been around since 1995. We've worked with many different industry or organizations across many industries of many sizes. So I think it was even touched on in the last panelist of how do you roll this out across an organization? How do you get that executive buy-in? And we've seen it across the board. We've seen that huge enterprise-wide, multi-department or entity access, and when that is the case, there's going to be a huge emphasis on user permissioning. That is going to be a huge factor, and we have different departments and different entities accessing the system. So it is a very configurable tool as far as user permissionings and what access they can see, what documents they can view, what information they can see. But we also see a lot of scalability within the system. So we see a lot of success with executive buy-in is organizations saying, hey, let's start with a specific department or a specific type of agreement. Hey, only buy side or only sell side. See that success. Do that analysis, like you were saying earlier, Naveen, of, hey, have we seen quicker turnaround times? Are there direct cost savings that we're seeing from utilizing a CLM? And then that's an easier way to get that executive buy-in. Hey, we've seen success within our buy side contracts. Let's start reviewing and implementing it sell side and have that more phased rollout.
No, that's really great. Last one for the day. How can we generate kind of actionable insights from all of this data? I think a good example is the pre-signature aspect. How is time being spent on a contract? How much time is it spending with legal versus finance versus maybe a counterparty or an external law firm? If you could tell us a little bit about the analytics piece of this, and how a legal team could use it to kind of show how they're spending their time.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is a huge factor of organizations looking to implement a tool and tracking that improvement, and that's a big factor of ROI. So there are a lot of out-of-the-box reports and dashboards to track those type of analytics. So a very common one, which I'll quickly show here, is basically going to be that cycle time report. So if we come down here again, we have some productivity by certain tasks, measure of days between tasks, task productivity, etc. That's going to provide that overview. Hey, how long in days are we spending within legal review, finance review, IT review, counterparty review, awaiting signatures, even something as simple as how often are we waiting days or weeks on end for parties to sign a document. So that provides that overview and that analysis to track, hey, do we have bottlenecks within our process? Are we recognizing, hey, we're getting through legal review on average within 2 days, but it's taking IT 7 to 8 days to get through their review? Is that a bandwidth issue? Is that a process issue? It kind of gives them that overview and analysis of where within our process can we improve, and then you can drill down into that and implement changes to improve.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And it really takes us back to something the panel talked about at the beginning, which is, it's a constant state of change and improvement. Not too much change, but refining and iterating, and whether that's your platform or just how you work within that platform and where you're spending your time. And this is a lot of useful insights. Well, thank you, Michael, for your presentation today. And thank you for attending. I had some closing remarks prepared, but we are a little over time. So instead, I will truncate it because you did not come here to listen to me talk a lot as well. But thank you to our audience. You guys were amazing. We got way more questions than we had time to answer, but Tech Summit will distribute answers to these questions after the event as well. So stay tuned for that. If you pose the question that did not get answered by the speakers or the panelists, unfortunately, that's all the time we have, and presumably all of you are incredibly busy. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to the speakers and panelists as well. It was a great session. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully the audience had some key takeaways as well. It was pretty amazing. Thank you to Tech Summit organizers as well. And of course, our sponsors, DocPath and Cobblestone, as well, for both, sponsorship and your participation in this as well. And, Tech Summit does a lot of events like this, so please feel free to sign up, follow Tech Summit on LinkedIn, and join us for the next session. Maybe I'll be here, maybe I won't be. Maybe I'll have my sword this time. The only way to know for sure is to join and see what happens. Once again, I've been Navin Mahavijan from Black Paladin Solutions, and it's been my pleasure to be your host and moderator for this session. So please feel free to reach out to me or any of the other speakers and panelists if you have questions or challenges with CLM. We love this stuff, and we're always happy to talk about it one-on-one as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Naveen.